Okay, welcome to the Stellify podcast, and I'm delighted to welcome back Michelle Gibson. Many of you will know Michelle from her groundbreaking work uncovering the hidden ancient infrastructure that still shapes our world today, from ley lines and star forts to architecture and city planning that most people will overlook. Michelle has an extraordinary gift for connecting dots and revealing the underlying geometry, energy grids, and sacred design of our lands. And in our first conversation, Michelle opened our eyes to forgotten past and how much has been hidden from humanity. Michelle's work shows how places we think are as ordinary, like the Thames Estuary in London, are actually nodes in a vast energetic network that has shaped civilization itself. And Michelle, I'm very excited. As I mentioned off camera, I didn't listen in school. So I'm going to be taken to school by the best researcher around right now. So I appreciate you coming back to Stellify. Much love to you, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much, Ant. I appreciate that introduction. And this is a mission for me. We were just talking about missions. That's why we're here. There's no reason for me to know about any of this. And yet, all of the information that I needed to put the puzzle together came to me synchronistically throughout the course of my life, starting when I was very young. And then somewhere around 2016 was when it started to come together into like an aha. And then 2018, in June of 2018, was when I started blogging and making videos, with my starting point being sacred geometry, ley lines, and the Moors.
Yeah.
And then finding my own ley lines based on the sacred geometric shape of a star tetrahedron that I found by connecting dots of cities and places in North America, and then extending those lines out in geometric patterns to find long distance alignments around the Earth.
Yeah.
And then from the process of researching place to place to place on these alignments that I found, I saw the same hand of design across continents all over the face of the Earth. One hand of design.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I saw how the colonizers in our narrative came in along these ley lines and took over strategic places like star forts, which I don't think were military in nature at all. I think they were batteries on the Earth's grid. And then when you go look at what the narrative says, so I've got little things that I look for when I go to a place, and then I see what it says, but I read between the lines because I have to, because the narrative, while it's detailed and goes in depth, is very flimsy and really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so in my research over the years, I've just kind of been pulling apart what the narrative says and what's actually there. And it truly falls apart when you look at it. It's ridiculous.
It requires that person just to step out from their education, doesn't it? The kind of the programming that we endure as children. That this is the history. Take it as read. This is fact. Blah blah blah, and you carry that for the rest of your life generally. But you don't then step out of it. It's almost like the ridiculous of, you see some of these incredible buildings that are apparently built in the 1800s, and they're supposed to have been built without power tools, and it's like some of these incredible work, and yet we can't do that now. we can't build these buildings now, and it's mind blowing. But so how did they do it? I mean, I know you've got a presentation plan for today, so this is why I'm particularly excited on this, because I can just sit back and you can teach me and take me to school, like I say, and my listeners as well, because there is no one else I'd rather go to school with, Michelle. I really wouldn't. Like I say, you're a hero in our house.
It's interesting because as I'm following these ley lines and have a pretty good understanding of what I'm looking at, that there was an ancient advanced worldwide civilization, the same as Atlantis, that existed
Yeah.
from ancient times to relatively modern, and identifying an energy grid that was a free energy power generating, transmitting, probably perpetual motion system that was perfectly integrated again over the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Did not happen randomly. It did not happen from empires completely at war with each other. It happened from a civilization that was in higher consciousness, who knew who they were, where they were, and what they were doing. And I believe they were co-creating with the creator the kingdom of God on the surface of the earth, is what I believe. And that evil found a way to come in and crash the party. And so I believe they deliberately destroyed the energy grid, and that when they destroyed the energy grid, they destroyed the surface of the earth and brought us the deserts and the dunes and the wetlands, the oceans, the lakes, the estuaries that we see across the face of the earth. And then they've just given this the backfill story. Oh, this is natural. It's always been this way. Da 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 da. And I'm just going to show you today why from your own country
Mm-hmm.
that you can find this everywhere. And this started to come out when I was tracking the ley lines, which has been a lot of my work. And seeing what's actually there and seeing what they actually say. So a typical story is this railroad was built in the 1850s in the middle of this swamp.
As you would. It's just that's what you'd do, isn't it? You'd start in the
That's pretty
swamp.
typical.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
this swamp here, so we got it to the point where we could build this railroad, and then we didn't need the railroad anymore. And that's what I'm talking about, all the inconsistencies and just really weak stories, cover stories that they gave us, and then they just repeated it over and over again. So if you don't mind, I can go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint that I put together.
Please do, Michelle.
And
please do.
we're going to look at the Thames Estuary, the Solent in southern England, and the Loughor Estuary in southern Wales.
Okay, great. Smashing.
And I've been very blessed that a lot of people have sent me places that they suggest that I look at. And the beauty of that is that it takes me places that I would not necessarily go otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And let me figure this out. Oh, here we go. And has, the places I'm looking at today, two of the places, the Solent and South Wales, were suggestions by viewers.
Okay.
And then I was doing research for another piece where I looked at the River Thames in detail.
Okay, great.
And I decided to go ahead and go in this direction for today's presentation, and because I know you've been checking out my series on the Great Lakes.
I have, yeah.
And it's very much the same idea that
Yeah.
That this is sunken land. Can you see my? You can see my screen.
It's not come up yet.
Okay.
By the way, anyone who's watching, if you've not checked out Michelle's amazing YouTube channel and her blog as well, which is incredibly extensive. I've never seen a blog like it, to be honest with you, the amount of work that's been put in there. I'll put everything in the show notes. Just get over there, subscribe to Michelle, jump on her Patreon. Honestly, you won't believe the amount of research Michelle has done over the years. It's mind-blowing.
So I'm not sure why it's not coming up on your.
Okay.
Let me see here. Let me try again and see if I can get it to work. So slides. Oh, maybe this will do it.
There we go.
Are you seeing it now?
I can see that going up. Yep, there we go.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
So An estuary is defined as a partially enclosed coastal body of brackish water, which is water that is salty, dirty, and unpleasant, with one or more rivers flowing into it and a connection to the open sea. And I believe that the world's estuaries represent sunken land, and that these were at one time canals. It was actually
Okay.
a very sophisticated canal system.
Right.
Um, and I'm going to go through this presentation and show you why this is what I believe.
Okay.
So let's take a look at the River Thames Estuary in England, where the HMS Beagle ended its last year as a watch vessel in the mid-19th century before it was sold for scrap. In 1845, the HMS Beagle was refitted as a Coast Guard watch vessel in Essex, in the navigable waters beyond the Thames Estuary, moored in the middle of the River Roach, until oyster companies and traders petitioned to have it removed in 1851, citing the vessel was obstructing the river and its oyster beds. The Navy list shows that on May 25th of 1851, the once famed HMS Beagle was renamed Southend WV number 7 at Pagelsham and later sold to be broken up.
Right.
So this is the same Beagle that Charles Darwin traveled on, the famous
Okay.
voyage. It
Right.
brought us the whole theories of evolution,
That
supposedly.
that true story of evolution.
Right. But
Yeah.
this is what happened to that famous vessel, and it was on altogether 3 world exploration type voyages. Darwin's was the second,
Mm.
and then the last one was to Australia. So there's a couple of things I want you to remember. One is the oysters, because
Yeah.
that'll come back up. But another interesting thing is the year which of 1851, which was the same year as the Crystal Palace exhibition.
Right.
That started on May 1st of 1851, less than a month before, with the Beagle. And I believe that the Crystal Palace exhibition was the official kickoff of the New World Order reset timeline,
Yeah,
opened
I've
by
heard you
Queen
say that
Victoria.
before. Yeah. Yeah.
They give us all of these crazy stories about how these exhibitions and world fairs were like built. They built it. Prince Albert and all these people that were famous around that time planned it and built it. In the case of the Crystal Palace, it was said to have been moved to a different location afterwards, and then it was burned down by fire. But that story in itself beggars belief
Well, it
that
does.
that was built in 9 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then torn down.
And then torn. Well, this one wasn't torn down. Like I said, it was moved,
Yeah.
physically moved, and then it burned down in the 1930s, I think. So,
Why
again,
would
it
you?
doesn't make sense.
No,
And
but
then
why would you? Yeah.
there was rail infrastructure and all kinds of things here. So again, when you look at the inconsistencies of what our narrative tells us, it just falls apart.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't make sense, does it?
Mm, just one of countless examples.
Yeah.
The Thames Estuary is where the River Thames meets the North Sea, and the Greater Thames Estuary refers to the low-lying mudflats and marshlands that border the estuary. And again, I'm looking at these mudflats and marshlands as being the result of the destruction of the grid system.
Right.
And you can like in this picture, you can see the muddy waters mixing with the waters of the North Sea. So as I'm looking through here, I found out that these marshlands were the setting in the first chapter of Charles Dickens' novel, Great Expectations. So I don't know about you, but that was required reading when I was in 9th grade in American high school. And this is where a young orphan named Pip was living with his sister and was grabbed in a graveyard by a convict in leg irons. A
Yeah.
book that was, like I said, a book that was required reading when I was in high school. We had to read it, and we analyzed it in class for meanings. Yet perhaps there were hidden meanings being conveyed in this book about marshlands, orphans, and convicts that we have not been consciously aware of about in the prevalent conditions of the day. So, and I think Dickens was one of the shapers of the new narrative. I
Yeah,
think
I've heard you say that. Yeah,
he was shaping impressionable minds with this new version of history. And I think there were a lot of orphans in the 19th
exactly.
century. I think the 19th century was a mess for humanity. This would have just happened, and they were cleaning up after this massive, muddy event that destroyed the original civilization. And there were a lot of young children, orphans, and
And
there were a
wasn't
lot of
some of
convicts.
the, sorry, Michelle, wasn't some of the expositions as well, they used to have incubators as well with babies in? I mean, why would you do that? You got to
That's a good
question
question.
all this, haven't you? It doesn't make sense.
And what the narrative tells us is that was neonatal care, the baby incubators,
Yeah, so you just have them all on display, all these babies,
as a sideshow event,
as a sideshow event. Yeah, exactly.
because that
It's
was
just
healthcare.
ridiculous. Crazy.
And I think it was a combination of possibly repopulation, but it could have just as easily been industrial scale child trafficking.
Yeah,
Knowing what we know these days that we didn't know then about
yeah.
these elites having this proclivity for children. So I think it was a combination, probably, of repopulation and other things, which aren't good.
So do you think Charles Dickens then was an element of social control then, I suppose,
Absolutely.
with Oliver and Great Expectations and things like that?
Right. I think
Yeah.
he was conveying the horrendous things that was happening to and conditions that was happening in the Victorian era in England.
Mm,
And we're taught no big deal. This is just the way the things were. Like the Inquisition. Where people are being tortured and killed for not converting to Catholicism. Oh well,
hmm.
that's normal.
Yeah, just normalizing crazy events, unhuman events.
So I think Charles Dickens was fulfilling that role. I think Victor Hugo was fulfilling that role with looks like Les Miserables, which means the miserable,
Mm,
the suffering. Um, I think it was a probably a pretty apt description of the 19th century. Um, but we've not been told about this, and they were trying to fill in and give us a history starting from a very young age, because I think it was probably mostly young children at that point. I'm not
yeah.
saying that there weren't adults, but a lot of kids. And then the adults were kept plied with alcohol and drunk and, get the workhouses and the debtors' prisons and, all of that very much by design. So if there were adults, then they were kept out of the picture.
Well, if you're going to re-educate a generation to behave and conform, it's easy to do it with children.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that they're trying to do now.
Yeah,
And, rewrite history again. But there's
yeah.
still a lot of us that remember history, at least in
History.
our
Mhm.
lifetimes. Um, so that's a process that's been ongoing. And we were talking before, and I'm going to say it again. I don't think they're going to get away with what they've done. And so I think we're seeing things play out, but I do not believe that they're going to get away with what they've done or be
No, me neither.
successful. Because in my mind, the two systems cannot exist side by side. Given half a chance, these demons will kill us, literally.
Hmm.
If we have a brighter future, allowing this to continue, what's been put in place, the system that's been put in place, it has to go away for the new to come in. And I believe that's happening with the awakening and a lot of the things that are happening right now. It's taking longer than I thought it would, but I see signs that it's happening, and we just have to keep doing what we're doing
I agree
to,
totally.
to keep getting it
Yeah.
out there. So this is the London Stone, and it's the eastern end of the Thames Estuary, which is delineated by the Yantlet line, which is a line across the estuary that is marked by this stone
Hmm.
at Yantlet Creek on Grain Island, and the Crow Stone. You got to keep in mind they're obelisks
I know, yeah.
at Southend on Sea.
Right.
And so together, these two obelisks formed the boundaries which marked the seaward limit of the jurisdiction of the City of London, which is about 33.5 miles or 54 kilometers from London Bridge, and were said to have been erected in 1837, which interestingly is the same year as Queen Victoria's reign when it started. Her reign started in 1837. And I think the Victorian era was the reset era, reset of
Okay.
history era.
Okay.
And a lot going on in that time period, 65 years or however many it was. And so you get Victorian architecture and all this stuff happening, and I'll be giving some examples as we go through this of what I'm
Okay.
talking about. So the Teddington Lock and Weir is at the western end of the Thames Estuary Tideway, and this is in southwest London. And it's a complex of locks and low-lying dams, which was said to have been constructed in around 1810 and later strengthened with stone in 1859.
Right.
1810. So again, with the ridiculousness of the narrative, how in the heck were we building these complex canals and locks and dams?
What with horse and cart and chisels?
And this story is repeated over and over and over again.
It beggars. I don't know. I can't get. It's amazing how they could possibly do it, Michelle.
Because they had control of everything.
Yeah.
And they lost control of that when they gave us the internet. So this was a canal society. Canals everywhere,
Yeah.
not just in Venice. The Richmond Lock and Weir in southwest London on the Tideway was said to have been built between 1891 and 1894. So a little bit further in time, but again, look at it.
Mm. It's incredible.
Pretty darn sophisticated.
Absolutely.
They're telling us with shovels and
I
picks.
know. It's just not going to happen, is it? And then the movement of the stones. I was reading a blog post of yours earlier on today, actually, and about the needle, the
Mhm.
London needle.
And I've got that coming up here too.
Oh, I won't say
That'll be
anything.
up here in just a moment.
Yeah, I won't say anything.
Yeah, again, the ridiculous stories, and that's a good example. So there are altogether 45 locks on the River Thames. Locks are features of canals which raise or lower the water for boats to travel through the canal. So how far of a stretch is it to see these so-called river systems as man-made canal systems?
Mm.
Because they will tell us the Thames is a natural river. And
Oh, they will
other
do. Of course they
major
will. Yeah.
rivers. And of course there's canals here and there, but it's natural. Like I show here.
Yeah. Yeah.
The River Thames is London's best known natural feature.
Yeah.
So this is the official story. With respect to the obelisk markers at the entrance of the Thames on the east side, it is noteworthy that another name for the River Thames is the River Isis, as
Oh, I didn't
mentioned
know that.
in this clipping from a 1777 Oxford newspaper on the left and a 1900 print on the right, also from Oxford.
Very interesting.
There's another obelisk in London on the River Thames / Isis, Cleopatra's Needles, between the Parliament buildings at the Palace of Westminster and the Tower Bridge. So it's going to get into what you were talking about.
Mm.
This is what they tell us. It is one of 3 obelisks of the same name, Cleopatra's Needle, that we were told were transported from Egypt. The others are in Paris and New York City, said to weigh 240 tons or 480,000 pounds or 218 metric tons or 218,000 kilograms. It is said to have been given to the government of the United Kingdom in 1819 by the ruler of Egypt and Sudan, Muhammad Ali, to commemorate the British victories in the Battle of the Nile of 1798 and the Battle of Alexandria in 1801. The gift was initially declined because of the expense of shipping it to England. In 1877, one version of the story about it says it got here by Sir William James Erastus Wilson, a distinguished anatomist who paid £10,000 for the shipping of it. Another version of the story says that the British public raised £15,000 to have it shipped that year. At any rate, it was said to have been dug out of the sand where it had been buried for 2,000 years, and a shipping container was made for it specifically, a 92-foot or 28-meter long and 16-foot wide or 4.9-meter iron cylinder, which was pulled by tugboat. It eventually made its way across the sea to London, where it was re-erected on the banks of the River Thames. What is harder to believe? Obelisks weighing over 200 tons could be shipped via ocean to other countries, or they were already there.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
And
why would you move something like that? And then it would to not only, but to New York as well and Paris.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Just an example of the ludicrous stories that go along with this stuff. And they don't bat an eye. And that's what you're going to find when you go looking it up. How did the Cleopatra's Needle get to London? And this similar story with Paris and a similar story with New York.
So it's in its sand in Egypt for 2,000 years, and then it's gifted.
And then it's gifted. You can have these 3 giant obelisks. Thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, right. Not falling for that one.
So this is, let's see. So I mentioned about the oysters. One more thing in the River Thames Estuary has to do with oyster beds. I already mentioned that the HMS Beagle was refitted as a Coast Guard watch vessel in Essex in 1845. And that oyster companies and traders petitioned to have it removed in 1851, citing the vessel was obstructing the river and its oyster beds. I'm bringing this up because oyster beds or reefs are like coral reefs in that they attach themselves to a hard surface in the water to form a bed or reef, giving rise to the possibility there is indeed something hard underneath the surface of the water, like sunken infrastructure. An oyster reef would be an example of another definition of a colony. In biology, a colony is a homogeneous group of organisms in a community, which is a naturally occurring group of interacting organisms in a defined area, like a reef community. The definition of colony we are most familiar with in our historical narrative is this one: a territory under the complete political control and occupied by settlers of a state. Again, our history.
Yeah.
So before I move on to the Solent, anything you'd like to comment on?
So you feel that the estuary then, these were canals, and then, just so I'm clear in my mind, when the hijack happened on our energy grids, you feel then that has collapsed that area that's then become the river.
Right.
So that I'm just getting that clear in my mind.
I think we're looking at destroyed land, and I'm going to be giving you some more examples of this.
Okay.
This is a cover-up,
Yeah, yeah,
and they've covered up everything by calling it natural. So I'm going to go on to the Solent. And this first slide is showing what are called Palmerston forts on the Isle of Wight and the Solent,
right.
the strait between the Isle of Wight and the mainland of Great Britain. There were approximately 20 of these Palmerston structures along the west and east coast of the Isle of Wight, and they're star forts, all of which were said to have been constructions resulting from the 1859 Royal Commission on the Defense of the United Kingdom. And
Okay.
Lord Palmerston was Queen Victoria's prime minister.
Yeah, okay.
The four-star forts in the Solent, in appearance, look like the Stack Rock Fort in Milford Haven, which I don't know if I have a picture of that here. But these appear to have the appearance of a spark plug,
They
which
do.
is this one here in the middle. That's a spark plug.
Yeah, yeah, they do. It's
So
bizarre.
these 5 star forts are in the Solent. And some of them are like Airbnbs or something. And
Really?
they've been turned into vacation locations. And then on this one, Stack Rock Fort, you see the rocky land underneath.
Yeah.
So, in this case, they want us to believe they built this very complex structure in the middle of the water. Well, at least
When
they
are
had a
they
little bit
saying
of
they
rock
were built? Sorry, Michelle. When have these supposedly been built?
sometime after 1859.
So in the ocean, and so how deep does that go then? And how did they in the 1800s, when again we're dealing with horse, cart, chisel, hammer? Um, how did they do that?
They don't tell us that. So these forts are over here in the Solent in the water,
Okay.
and then you have
And what
Palmerston forts around the Isle of Wight. And
and what use of what are they saying is the use of those forts and what was the purpose?
they tell us defense. I'm
Okay.
saying they were part of the energy grid,
Yeah, yeah,
and they
yeah.
look like spark plugs for a reason.
They certainly look like spark plugs. It's bizarre.
They were spark plugs or something like that. The Exbury Gardens are world famous for the collection of rhododendrons and azaleas of the Rothschild owners.
Ah, interesting.
So you've got a Rothschild fingerprint there, and they were very much part of this.
Right.
Not good guys.
Imagine my shock. Yeah, certainly not good
Not good
guys.
guys. And
No.
again, you got the railroad there, and the railroad was part of the energy grid.
Yeah.
And there's the gardens also.
There was something else you about the railways that I think it was again one of your blogs, and I think you've talked about it anyway, where there was a certain time where you went from steam to 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 to, to coal or whatever, and then to electric kind of thing. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, well, how do we get from? I think you were going to electric in the 20s or something. I can't remember what the years was, but how do we get from that? And then 100 years later, we've got AI. So have we only ever had technology in the past like 50 years or something ridiculous? I mean, and yet the human species is supposed to be on this planet for how long? But
Right.
only it doesn't make sense.
No, and the other thing that doesn't make sense speaks to what you were just talking about, which is we had this incredible burst of activity between like 1870s, 1850s to say like the 1920s of all of this incredible stuff, and we've regressed since that
Yeah,
time. And they've
yeah,
taken the railroads out, and
yeah, yeah. The
all the high
streetcars and
technology that we had that you can look at, like you said, the streetcars and everything else. You see, the Keystone Cops were
yeah,
on streetcars. They were doing their antics on streetcars, and those
That's
streetcars
right.
are gone.
Yeah.
They whenever the technology became inconvenient or no longer needed, they took it out.
And there was that
And
technology in the Paris exposition, was it, where you've got the pavements that are moving?
yeah, you
Yeah.
see, you can find videos of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I've seen. Yeah.
very high tech. We're supposed to be the best that ever was, but
Mm.
after this burst of activities, let's say from the 1860s to the 1920s, they started taking it out, and then a lot of the modern wars destroyed it. Manila and Hanoi both had sophisticated streetcar systems that were destroyed. Manila's in World War II and Hanoi's during the Vietnam War. So
Mm.
that was part of these wars that were financed by these Rothschilds and folks like that, other financiers. So they're totally behind this, and I stand behind that. I'm not going to back down from that.
You've got a date on that as well, in a way, haven't you? When or a period of time where this started to happen. So
Right. So Nathan Rothschild set up shop in London in around the 1800s, early 1800s. Alex Brown and Son. Alex Brown was an Irish-born immigrant to the United States who had established this banking house. Same idea, 5 sons as Rothschild, um, around the same time,
mm,
and several others as well. You follow the money in terms of what's taken place here,
yeah,
and these financiers who built their wealth initially on cloth. Surprise, surprise, but not really, be- because cloth has been another way of binding us. We went from silks, fine
hmm
cloth to cotton and wool, and then they can put poisons in the synthetic dyes and so on and so forth. So
and the
this was very much part of it.
polyester and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
They got into opium smuggling. The wealthiest families, Forbes and Astor, they were into smuggling drugs. Um, they set up the alcohol industry early on.
hmm hmm
Um, and then as they made their money, then they started bringing the railroads back online, canals back online. So this was
Right.
the Vanderbilts. Um, Vanderbilts got their start in railways and steamships. Molson of Molson's Ale in Montreal, Canada, got his money went into railroads and steamships in the early days. But it started to show up that's when they got started around 1800 with their
Okay.
dynasties.
Yeah. Nice people.
Well, part of their gaslighting is calling people that point the truth out conspiracy theorists.
Of course we
You know,
are.
and what they've been doing is actually a long-term conspiracy,
Yeah,
multi-generational. They're the conspirators.
absolutely they are. Yeah, but it's people jump on that though, don't they? Again, it's that cognitive dissonance where well, you're a conspiracy theorist, so whatever he says or she says is a load of nonsense, and it stops people thinking. Then it's quite
Mhm.
clever.
And quite painful.
Yeah, it is painful.
Contributing to the cognitive dissonance. People have been lied to all the time, and so they believe what they're told, and trying to, you just really have to hope that. I hope the information I'm putting out gets to people that are ready for it, as I'm sure you do,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
not everybody's there.
No, no, but more are.
I agree. So now we're moving into South Wales, and we're told
Hmm.
that the Romans built a trapezoidal fort called Loughor at the mouth of
Okay,
the River Loughor in the late first century to house a regiment of Roman auxiliary troops. So again, I think our history is fabricated, including the Romans. So they're coming up with explanations for what's there. And
right.
again, this is obviously a geometric shape. And so when they went back into the narrative to explain everything, that's what came up. There was a Roman fort that was built in 75 AD, somewhere around there.
Wow.
Its remains are located beneath the town of Loughor on the estuary of the river Loughor. And again, you're seeing the muddy. You've got your
Yeah.
channels, and you've got a lot of shoals and sandbars here.
Yeah.
The Loughor railway station was on the South Wales Railway, which today is the West Wales line from Swansea to Llanelli.
Right.
Llanelli. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
So, again, you'd have these fully intact rails and rail infrastructure, even in places like this. And again, this is worldwide. Isambard Kingdom Brunel was an English civil and mechanical engineer who is credited with the building of the Great Western Railway that we just saw an example of, along with dockyards and steamships, and called one of the 19th century engineering giants and one of the greatest figures of the Industrial Revolution. So this standish looking guy got the historical credit for what we see.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, they'll need somebody, won't they, to be a
Right.
figurehead.
Yep. So they got it. They had it all figured out. I think we're talking about Freemasons and Jesuits and
Yeah.
whoever
To
else
create a
was
story.
responsible
Yeah.
for this. And then it's interesting because behind him you see these ginormous chains.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think humanity was much bigger. And that's another question you have to ask with the size of a lot of what we see today is like, who made that? Why so big?
Mm.
And we haven't been told anything else. So he's like, okay, well, that's what our narrative says. All right, I guess must be it. And then it's reinforced in museums and textbooks and just yada yada yada. We just get this
Yeah. Well, we just
fabricated
talk.
story repeated over and over again.
Well, if you tell a lie and you tell it enough times, it becomes truth, doesn't it? That's the thing.
That's what they're betting on. So this viaduct, the Loughor Viaduct, was said to be the last remaining timber viaduct designed by Kingdom Brunel in 1852. So again, you have that 1850 time period show up,
Yeah.
where there's an awful
Yeah.
lot happening. The old viaduct was replaced and the new one opened in April of 2013.
Right.
And that's what's left of it. And we're told that it was left to recognize it as an important historical monument.
Okay. So that's the reasoning then.
So again, 1850s is what they're telling us. The original was
Right.
built. A section of the old viaduct sits next to the new viaduct. Okay, so the last place I would like to take a look at on the Gower Peninsula is Mumbles, a
Yeah.
headland situated on the western edge of Swansea Bay. And I just want to point out the areas of natural beauty that are around Great Britain.
Yeah.
Check them out with new eyes the next time you go.
I will. Yeah, I will. Okay. Mumbles.
The building of the Mumbles Lighthouse was said to have been completed in 1794. And we're told that Mumbles Battery, a Palmerston fort, was built around the base of the lighthouse between 1859 and 1861. And again, you have this, whatever this is, it looks like it's encased
Yeah.
in the earth. Again, that's quite common.
Did you say Mumbles Battery?
Mm-hmm. The Mumbles Battery
Okay.
is what they're called. So like
Well,
star forts are frequently called batteries. And I think that's just a clue as to what they actually were.
I was just going to say it's very apt.
Yeah. But they want us to believe it was strictly military. And without any other
Yeah.
explanation, people are like, yeah, that makes sense. But then you take into consideration when they are said to be building these, compared with what we were told we were capable of doing at the time, which was pretty low tech.
Mm.
It really, again, it's another place where it starts to fall apart. Mumbles Pier was said to have opened in 1898 at the terminus of the Swansea and Mumbles Railway. So you've got the railway next to the water, which I think is significant because I think
Yeah.
the land broke off where these railroads were and starforts and lighthouses. I think they were part of the grid.
Okay.
And what we see
Okay.
today wasn't there before.
Okay. Yeah. I see where you're going with that one. Yeah.
And of course, they're pulling the car along. The
Okay.
Swansea and Mumbles Railway was the world's first horse-drawn public passenger train service. So they can build the train tracks and everything else, but they have to initially have it pulled by horse or mule.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's right. You know, so they build these forts in the ocean.
And this
They
one
can do
first
that.
opened in 1804 to transport iron ore from the Clyde Valley and limestone from the quarries of Mumbles, and then opened in 1807 to passenger train service. Steam power replaced horsepower in 1877 and was used until 1929 when it switched to electric power until the closure of the train line in 1960. So
Right.
horse-drawn 1804
Yeah.
to 1877,
Yeah.
and then they used steam power from 1877 to 1929, and then they used electric power from 1929 until 1960, and then they closed it
And then they close
entirely.
it.
It's kind of some
Okay.
things you find out in narrative.
But again, like I said, how do you go from zero technology, if you like, to AI in 2025 in only 100 years? It doesn't add up.
And just a couple more slides. So Mumbles had both historical limestone quarries and was part of the Gower lime burning industry, which operated
Right.
between 1840 and 1960. So quarries and lime burning. Lime burning, what's that? The lime burner's job was to remove quicklime from limestone, heated in what were called lime kilns, to be used for things like building mortars. This lime kiln looks like a really old stone building. So it looks like they were harvesting what they could out of these old structures, stone structures.
Okay.
They were harvesting everything they could get their hands on, including the oysters. So oyster beds and oysters were plentiful in the waters around Mumbles, and the heyday of the oyster harvesting industry was from 1850 until 1873, after which time the oyster industry went into decline as a mainstay of the economy for a variety of reasons, we're told, including the coming of the railroad and the growth of Mumbles as a tourist destination. So both of those reasons were given as to why the oyster harvesting went out. But, you know, again, they probably just got all of them. And I do think there's infrastructure underneath here. And, you know, you can see how shallow it is where the water meets the shore. And then, you know, these different sites where they had these beds here on the right.
Can I ask you a question about the lime
Mhm.
stone as well, Michelle? Because this is something that's interesting, I think, because I think you mentioned that is it the pyramids are made of limestone, the Wailing Walls made of limestone. What is it about the limestone that's important to these, you know, very important structures?
So marble,
Marble,
you
yeah.
know, other dolomite, other building materials, hard building materials were used in the buildings of these old structures that are
Hmm.
clearly better made than what we're capable of doing today.
Yeah.
And the quarries, in my opinion, are ancient infrastructure. That
Okay.
they're actually going and they're getting these big blocks of stone out of these what were originally buildings and temples and things like that.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
And then you look at the Welsh name of Wales and it's Cymru,
Yeah.
Cymru, and that's
Yeah.
like chem.
Oh, yeah.
So we're
Interesting.
probably actually looking at, Kemetic civilization, Chem, which was an ancient
Interesting.
name for Egypt.
Oh,
And
wow. It's amazing when you join the dots like that, then you go, ah, the penny drops.
so again, it's like when you start picking apart the narrative and looking at what's actually there and what they tell us about it, with the bigger picture of this worldwide civilization that's been kept
Yeah.
from us. So we wouldn't
Yeah.
know anything about it. We wouldn't know who we are, how advanced we were. So these filthy, greedy, bloodthirsty cabal could have their way, not only with us, but also with the legacy of the original civilization and harvesting it. They're harvesting when they harvest the gold and the iron, and they're getting the grid components. And I
Mm,
think they knew where
mm.
they were.
Yeah.
They're not dumb.
No.
They're
Well,
just not us, and it's like they know how to reverse engineer, but they need our creativity and our spark of God, if you will. And that's what really this is all about. They want to control the creator and creation through humanity. And like I said earlier, we're disposable to them. I mean,
it's
all
a
they
very
want is our
Gnostic
energy.
story, that. It's a very Gnostic story, though, that, Michelle, isn't it? The archons that can't create, but they can harvest our energy, and they can manipulate us, and they can deceive us and use us, and to harvest our negative energy, if you like, and they feed off that.
Exactly. And that gets into the archons. And they're part of the mix too, but the archons show up in the Gnostic literature.
Yeah, yeah,
So whoever's behind this is not human. They're parasites. They've turned us into the worst version of ourselves, our lower selves, instead of our higher selves. And we were functioning in our higher selves prior to this event. And I know other people think there have been cyclic events and resets, and I just don't believe that. I see one long-lasting civilization that was destroyed in one massive event, cataclysmic event, and reset. So I'm in agreement with that. There's been a major reset.
mm,
From the work that I'm doing, is I see a very advanced civilization that existed from ancient times to relatively recently. And we're still living and using the infrastructure that they built,
do you
working in
think
it,
then?
going to school in it, going to theater in it, going into ball games in it. I mean, and they're harvesting our energy because they've reverse engineered the grid from what was originally a free energy grid for the benefit of all into the matrix for power and control. So when we go to school, so if you think that every piece of infrastructure on the Earth's grid was perfectly aligned with each other and the heavens for this energy grid, and
Mhm.
then they stick us in schools in these buildings, or in insane asylums in these buildings,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
jails in these buildings, in theaters and museums. They're harvesting our energy. In churches, they're harvesting our energy.
yeah. And the thing is, they can break the human mind, not the spirit so much. I mean, they do break the spirit as well, but we are easily manipulated. They put us under a lot of stress, don't they? And they can break us down, and fragment us in that way, and then we're more controllable. But with you, if you're educated in, and you only see the narrative, if you feel, and when we talked off camera about this, if you feel that we are just simple creatures that have come here by accident, and we are hurtling through space at God knows what, and we're just the only organisms, if you like, that are living in the whole galaxy, then you feel that you're nothing, whereas that's not the truth. We are part of the creator. We are powerful creators in our own way, and they want us to create for them, not for ourselves. So they keep
Right,
us in fear.
right. And they got us to this point by controlling the narrative, educating us in their false history,
Yeah.
you know, uh, harnessing us to their system, their work system, whether workhouses or jobs or factories or, you know, college
Well, that's
professors, whatever.
yeah.
And they're actually not any freer than we are, the ones that have gone into higher education, um, because they've been taught lies their whole lives. They've been furthering this false system, this false belief system, doing research on these lies. That's hard. That's a hard pill.
It is, isn't it?
Um, and when you get down to it, it's really about energy. The original world was about energy. What's happened to it is about energy and who controls it and what the future of the universe is, which is why what we're doing is so important. And I think why a lot of us came in to be here now.
Mm.
What happens here now affects the future of the universe. And so
Yeah,
we
oh,
had we
definitely.
had to we had to learn the hard way with when you hit rock bottom, um, so we can make better choices. And if we can raise our vibration high enough collectively, shift the critical mass of consciousness into higher consciousness, which I believe is where we're going.
Mm.
But we have to know how bad it can get and still make the right decision.
This is where it becomes for me important to remember who you are, and this is a lot of humanity is disconnected from that, and if we can strip that programming back, and recognize how truly incredible human beings are, then that's when we start taking our power back. When we're disconnected, we are playing into their hands. So this is where we start fighting with each other, reacting instead of responding, behaving in not good ways, really. And we should be able to take a stand back and see and have more an observation of what's happening to us. And allow us then to respond rather than react, is what I mean.
Right. They've gotten into our heads to do their dirty work because they can't lay a hand on us because we're all sovereign beings. So they've had to trick us to give our sovereignty away and worship them.
Yeah, it's all
And
trickery.
and so, but you do have to let go of everything you've ever believed to be true to receive new information and the truth. And I think I was able to do it because I've lived a very different life and made a lot of different life choices from most people. And I
Yeah,
think part of me knew I was on a mission, but at the time I didn't know that.
no,
But I had to do things different than what was expected of me to be able to get on this path and receive the information I received. And so the matrix has not had that much of an effect on me. More when I was growing up.
yeah,
I was raised outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, Montgomery County, Maryland, and I graduated from high school in 1981. I spent I went to a year of junior college, and then I went into the Army for almost 4 years, and then I got out and attended university and got my degree in social work and psychology, and then I was a geriatric social worker for about 13 years.
yeah.
And this was never even something I could even ever have imagined me doing. It was not planned. But I had all these experiences and got all this information, and by the time I got the bigger picture, I knew I had to do something with it, which is when I got started.
It's funny that you've got your black cat there. I've got my black cat here too.
Yep, this is Binksy. she's
Oh,
my, she's my spirited one. I've got David over there in the window. They're a senior bonded pair that I adopted back at the end of May because I lost my companion cat of almost 16 years in
oh,
February. And so for a little, I was heartbroken for a little while, and it's like, I gotta have a cat. And then I got
yeah.
two. I wanted senior cats. I got two because I wanted them to have each other when I travel.
That's good. Yeah, that's
And
good.
they've been a joy. So never a dull moment.
No, well, yeah, we're a house full of animals. It's like a zoo in this house. Can I take you back to you mentioned lighthouses, and that was quite interesting, that structure that you showed as well on that photograph. But you don't feel lighthouses the original intention wasn't to guide. You think that it was
Not at
something
all.
else.
I think they were part of the energy grid as a light distribution, light energy part of the grid, and I
Mm.
think there was a connection to the creator, the source creator with these lighthouses, like giant trees, I think were also. I think they ended up next to the water when land sheared off right next to them when this happened. I think the destruction of the grid caused everything to go haywire and brought us the surface of the earth that we see today. It was the same. The oceans weren't there. A lot of the lakes weren't there. Bays, gulfs.
Do you think they're still tapping into this energy then? Because obviously they use the narrative of the fossil fuels, don't they? And this is the whole climate change agenda is all that
Mhm.
kind of
Good examples.
nonsense.
So no,
Yeah,
they weren't
yeah,
fossil fuels. They were part of this advanced system. They knew where to go to get it.
yeah.
They're convincing. They're trying to you know get us on this fossil fuel polluting carbon tax. It's another scam
Of
to
course it
take
is.
control. Climate change. It's UN Agenda 2030 or whatever it is. Treaty of Paris
Yeah, yeah,
bullshit.
yeah. That's it. It is.
That's what that is. And then
Yeah, just
they create the natural disasters, the tornadoes and the hurricanes to destroy. And anybody that doesn't think that technology exists, like HARP, need to rethink that. It's not
well,
natural. That's part of the lie.
I think it was this year the Labour Party over in the UK announced that they were, going to use or considering using um, geoengineering, and so they're normalizing it a little bit now because people are obviously seeing it more and more now, even though it's been going on probably 30 plus years.
Longer than
Um,
that. It's been going on a long
yeah,
time.
a long
Again,
time, but
anything we've ever believed to be true, we can just throw out the window. We were highly advanced, this place with nothing like what we've been told, and that there's more likely than not, a pre-existing technology that they're abusing, misusing to meet their control, their desires for power and control.
it's like those windmills, Michelle. Those modern windmills that you see all over the place, and they don't look like they could carry wind when you
And
look at them.
I don't think they're I don't think that's what it is at all, because if you watch them, they're all going at the same speed, and the wind
That's
doesn't
right.
even have to be blowing.
No, it doesn't. It's bizarre, isn't it? If you
You
if you
know,
look at it,
and I found long lines of these things doing their on ley lines. So I think
oh
they're harvesting that energy.
really?
And then if you look at the old windmills, which invariably they say it was based on Dutch windmills. If
Yeah.
there's one in a certain area, well, and we had this Dutch guy come over and design this or whatever. The same windmills were worldwide. I do not think, again, the story about what we're told about them is true. And then a lot of times they're gone.
Mm.
Like other infrastructure, they've been taken out. So the windmills were doing something else also.
So many lies. What was it like when you first came across the?
Before I started, honestly, and before I started doing my own research, I had I had been well prepared because I was interested in it. And so I was interested in megaliths first and hidden history, shows like In Search of when I was growing up, and Unsolved
Mm.
Mysteries, and even liked history detectives on PBS in the States. It's just that, things are different than what I would have seen at the time, but that whole idea of uncovering those kind of stuff. So I got all this information coming in my way because I was looking for it. And then I was living in Oklahoma, in the Oklahoma City area, in between 2012 and 2016, where I started getting some bigger pieces to this puzzle, including meeting a Moorish American man and learning about the Moors, and then learning more about the Moors and how that fit into all of this. But before I even started doing my research, I just started seeing things in the landscape come out, earthworks, big megalithic stones in Oklahoma City. You don't hear about that, and you can't look it up because it's not there. You can find them
Oh,
in
wow.
Britain because it's okay for them to be there, but it's not okay for them to be in the United States, but they're everywhere. Randomly, you can be walking along on a sidewalk and see this row of megalithic stone, big stone blocks. So, again, that's another part of the cover up. And then, it's like they have to tell us, but it's like they're rubbing their nose in it. So they haven't our nose in this. They haven't told us about it. They're leaving these clues, but we don't see it because they're not supposed to be there. And then once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. And that's what happened to me when I was living in Oklahoma. And it's just been a flood ever since.
One of the things I really love about your work, and I love everything I listen to, is the fact that we can most people who want to dive into history and question stuff would look at the pyramids at Giza, and they could question that. How was those structures built? They're so precise, astrologically they're so beautifully precise, and what were the purpose for? But how does, in those days, hundreds of slaves create such incredible structures? But your work doesn't just open the question on that structure, it opens up questions on the structures that's literally on your doorstep. It's like, look where you are, look around, and you will see something to question. And that's I think that's where your work is so incredible, because it's on your doorstep,
in your backyard, in your
Yeah.
community parks, state parks, national parks. Like I said, areas of natural beauty. Look at it differently. They have a vested interest in keeping the truth from us.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, and they took critical thinking out of the curriculum for education. They just wanted to train people that could get jobs and follow instructions. They don't want people that can think for themselves.
Well, wasn't that the Rockefeller purpose of education anyway? To create the slave, really, isn't it? It's a slave mind.
Yeah. And Andrew Carnegie was involved in that also. The Carnegie Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundations both have been highly influential, I know, in the American educational system, probably elsewhere too. So, like I said, those that go into higher education, they're allowed a little bit more, but, it's all peddling the same falsehoods. So I'm just really glad I didn't major in history when I was in college, because it would have been pretty useless. But my love of history when I was growing up did give me a good basis in what they tell us. And so I had that, and then just an ability to be open to what I was
You've got to
receiving,
be
and
open.
not try to put it into a box of what I already knew. And, I feel like if you start to question the universe, and in my case, I really feel this, the universe said, okay, you asked for it.
It does. It definitely does that.
And then the flood came. And it just gets steeper all the time, because I know so much more after 8 years of doing this research, that every time I go to do research, I see more and deeper than I did before. But everything that went before it has laid the foundation for what I'm doing now, and what I'll be doing in the future. Because I do believe the universe wants this information to come back out.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because how, like I said before, how do you figure out who you are if you don't know where you come from? So you've got to show the darkness and the lies, and then you've got to feel it, that something's not right, and then curiosity is a key player in an individual. Then, if they want to be curious enough to explore, a lot want to be ignorant, but it's good to explore.
And I like to put my work together in such a way that people can draw their own conclusions. It'll either resonate with them or it won't.
Yeah.
I'm not every once in a while I'll say what I think, but I don't want to be too directive with it. I want you to see what I'm seeing. And then hopefully see things differently. But we can't keep going on with the lies. We just can't. And, people talk about the biggest secret. I know David Icke talks about the reptilians. I think this by far is a much bigger secret. Maybe they're part of it. But what's been hidden from us is a much bigger secret.
Yeah. Have you dived into, because you feel that there's non-human forces at play here? Are we talking because I know you've mentioned fallen angels in the past, which again, that's quite a Book of Enoch kind of thing, isn't it? Where you've got the fallen angels, then the Nephilim, and so I've been looking at that recently myself. That the giants, the skeletons that they found, and then the Smithsonian's kind of lost them as they do.
Well, I think humanity was much bigger. Initially, originally, the original humanity was much bigger. Again, we've been lied to about everything, including getting into holy books. But there's truth in there. They didn't make everything up from scratch.
Yeah.
And they tend to want to blame us. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think Paradise Lost by John Milton, which was published around 1666, which was a red letter year in this timeline.
Good number.
1667, about fallen angels getting together. They get kicked out of heaven. They get together trying to figure out how they were going to mess with God's new most favored creation, which is humanity. And Paradise Lost, Satan goes into the Garden of Eden and tempts Eve at the beginning of the story. But I think that's exactly what's happened. I think that was early disclosure. They ruined God's creation, the Garden of Eden, which I think was worldwide, and started that process of indoctrinating us and so on and so forth. But I do think there are other life forms that have been part of this. So you look at the archons, reptilians, others that just jumped on this bandwagon and said, "Oh yeah, let's do this." But I do know that we're the creator in our essence. We're part of the creator. We're fractal. We're not just children of God. We are a direct part of God. And the original humanity knew that, and they were working with reconnecting. So you've got the practices of raising Kundalini and opening the third eye and attaining a high state of self-realization. So that was what this civilization was about and supporting. And the Tibetans have continued that with their yogis. Hindu yogis are doing the same thing. It's been more intact in the East, though darkness wanted to wipe it all out. And so, you see the Chinese invasion in 1950 and the imprisonment and torture of the monks and the nuns. We hear about Catholic monks and nuns, but I suspect in the West, they were doing the same thing that the Eastern monks and nuns were doing. So the monasteries and the nunneries existed for people that wanted to actively pursue connecting with their higher selves.
When you said, you mentioned that you think there's only been one reset, if you like. Now, I suspect that maybe these beings can time travel anyway. So they could fabricate, they could change things, couldn't they? They could move timelines and I mean, where I'm going with this is I'm thinking, has something happened where we've allowed a portal work to allow these entities in that can then keep shifting things, maybe?
I think the Philadelphia experiment was one of those. I think that's what
Yeah,
directly brought us where we are now, and Aleister Crowley, which I talk about a lot,
Crowley.
and I'm not ashamed to. I think that man was right in the middle of it. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna leave that open-ended. I see an advanced civilization that existed for a long time that got destroyed, and I've been documenting that. My findings about the civilization and what I see happen to it. Now, within what you're saying, we hear about the seven worlds and the first world, second world, third world, fourth world, fifth world, sixth world, seventh world.
Mm.
If we're in the fourth world, we don't know. Our concept of time is limited to, we think a millennia is 1,000 years, but we don't know that with all the other lies
No,
we've been told about. I mean, we're looking
that's
at
true.
civilization that goes back tens of the hundred thousands of millions of years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything we've been told is very limiting.
Yeah, because
And
we're lied
so
to so much. Mm.
so I mean, if you look at Vedic astrology and the cycles of time, the golden age, silver age, bronze, whatever it ends up being, Kali Yuga.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That ta we're talking long years,
Yeah,
long
yeah.
cycles of time. They've been watching it for a very, very long time. And so we've just been completely misinformed about who we are, where we are, time and space, shape of the earth, and been taught garbage. And so we just have to kind of step back, and it's not easy doing this. Honestly, I feel better on days that I don't do the research than on days that I do, because when you get into a really deep understanding of what's happened here, it's pretty sickening.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is.
But that doesn't keep me from doing it, nor does it jade me. I don't, I know how bad it is, but I still have faith in humanity. I still have faith that things are gonna get better, and I have to do that because besides the fact that I believe it is gonna get better, I can't even entertain the thought that it's not, knowing how bad it is and how bad it's been.
Well, I have faith, that things will turn round. I really do. I'm interested to know because you've researched for such a long time, Michelle. I know that. So I find sometimes when I'm working this path and I'm doing the research or trying to get the information out, sometimes I'm distracted by something else in my life that tries to take me off my path. And it could be a stressful situation, it could be trauma or whatever. Do you find that happens to you where you're being derailed?
Yes and no. So this really started happening to me when I moved to Arizona in 2017, was when it really
Yeah,
took off for me when I moved to the Sedona area. And so that was February 2017, but I was blogging and making videos by June of 2018, the following year.
yeah,
And I have to say that the one constant since then has been doing this work. There've been a lot of other changes in my life, circumstances, challenges.
yeah.
Um, but I feel like it's a life mission because no matter what, I've got plenty of information to draw from. I feel like I know what I'm looking at and how to interpret it. And with all the changes, it's like, this is it. This is the constant. And I've got an incredible amount of work. Yeah, it's
Yeah, you
overwhelming to me
have.
when I look at all
It's
the
amazing.
titles on my website and all the videos on my channel.
It's amazing.
But it's like I've got to get this out. If not me, who? If not now, when? And like I said, I just really want it to be there for the people that are ready for it, and that's the beauty of the internet. Um, whether it's a blog post on my website or on my YouTube channel, I find that people tend to find me when they are ready for it. And that's
I think
all I
that's the
really care
case.
about. That's all I
Yeah,
really care about. I don't care, that's all I want. I want it to be there and vibrate out to find the people that are ready for it, because if you're not ready for it, it will give you cognitive dissonance like no other.
oh,
It's
easily.
just too much.
Yeah, of course it will. Have you ever thought about putting stuff in print, and creating your own little time capsule as well, just in case they digitally started removing material?
Hopefully that'll be a thing of the past too. But I thought about it. I've got 2 ebooks of my work
Yeah,
available, but I prefer to focus on doing the blogging and making the videos. I get more bang for my buck. And since my goal is to wake people up and reach those with eyes to see and ears to hear, if I have a finite amount of time available to work, I would rather get it out
yeah, of course,
that
I
way than
understand.
spend the time. And I had thought about it. People have asked me about it.
Yeah,
Maybe someday, but this is my focus for now. And my eyes aren't the best. I mean, I can work in the morning and have my brain works the best in the morning. I can make
mm,
videos in the afternoon. So I've got a limited amount of time each day that I can really use. And so
yeah.
this is where I focus at.
Well, I'm sure you've woken up thousands upon thousands over the years, Michelle, I would imagine. I mean, like I
Yes.
say, the extents, like you mentioned yourself, when you look at it, it's phenomenal,
I mean,
the
that's my
amount
hope.
of work.
That's why I do it. And then
The
sometimes,
hero's journey, Michelle.
sometimes it inspires people to do their own, start their own YouTube channel or do their own research. And I tell people all you have to do is go out, like you said, just go outside your front door with your video camera on your phone and start videotaping
Yeah, I
because
think
it's
it's
there.
about questioning, isn't it? It's just questioning the narrative, and that's where I'm at with these things. It's like how ridiculous, like you mentioned, railways in the swamps. I mean, but why? Why would you do that? You know what I mean? Why would you shift this enormous needle structure to 3 areas in the world?
As a gift.
As a gift, it just doesn't add up. It's just why? Ask
And if
why.
anything else, that's what I want people to take away from what we've talked about today. The
Yeah,
stories make no sense. I mean, they
they
really
don't.
think we're pretty dumb.
Yeah, I think most
And
of the time we are.
but
That's the
that's because
thing.
we've been dumbed down
Yeah,
deliberately,
exactly. Of course we have, you
stuck
know.
in our lower chakras, fighting each
100%, that's
other.
where they keep us. Yeah, they keep us there, and and the fluoride in the water and the toothpaste and everything else doesn't help, does it? Because it keeps you, and they stick the TV on and you keep you stressed, keep you hard worked, 9 to 5, busy, stressed, put the TV on at the evening, drink alcohol, take drugs, look for other pleasures to keep yourself distracted, and therefore you don't ever work on yourself, and you don't maybe get into this kind of work, but I do think that's changing. I think more and more people are becoming aware of the falseness of the world that we're in.
Right. Their false system depends on people not waking up. So it's all by design. But at the
Yeah.
same time, they've given us the tools to wake up. Thank goodness.
And you know what's brilliant as well, though, Michelle, is because you use your intuition.
Mhm.
You use, the fact that synchronicity would come into your life or whatever, and you've got your own guidance there going through you. That's powerful stuff, that, because that's part of the spark as well, the magic,
Right.
because you're the
It's
creator.
and it's the miracle, with all the horrible stuff in the world today, synchronicities happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Some of us are more aware of them. I think there's something about my soul essence has something to do with the synchronicities because, like I said, they brought me into all of the information I needed to be able to do the work I'm doing today. But it's totally been a synchronistic experience. People that I've met, books that I've read, and it's again it's weird because it kind of builds on each other. it's like nothing's in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Information that I picked up a couple of years ago, if I look at it now, I might see it differently than I did. So I might not have paid any attention to it, but now it's like,
Well,
and I had an example of that when I put this together the other day,
right.
because um, I just did another conversation with Chad, and we're calling it liminal spaces, and we're
Oh,
looking at exactly how we got here with combination of his research and my research. I just
yeah.
said how I think Aleister Crowley played a role in this, and I would not have given the Crowstone in the Thames Estuary a second glance, except that I had put together another presentation to base our talk on yesterday,
Right.
and so crows come up quite a bit,
Interesting.
and it ties in. It probably won't be out for another month or so, but I think it's very compelling. I think this
Oh, I look
timeline's
forward
been
to that.
occulted, black magic and
Yeah.
all kinds of horrible things to keep us down. Um, Crows are part of the corvid genus, Corvid.
Okay.
Um, Crowley was from Royal Leamington Spa,
Yeah.
which is where the Rosalind Franklin Megalab was located for COVID.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Telling you, there's a lot of weird things. We're following the
Yeah.
weirdness, but you can kind of compile the examples, and it kind of a different picture emerges. And like I said, when I was going through the slides, the two stones, the obelisks at the mouth of the Thames Estuary, were said to have been erected in 1837, which was the same year, the beginning of Queen Victoria's reign. And so I do think there's significance there with all of this stuff.
Yeah. It comes. It's a lot in your work, isn't it? Where there's that time period, isn't there? Is it 17? No, was it the 1440?
So I'm looking at a time loop, or time like a 3D overlay. That's a
Yeah.
figure circle 8 between
Yeah.
1492, the year of the fall of Granada, and the year that Columbus set sail
Yeah.
for the New World, and 1942,
That's it.
which was
Yeah.
midway through the Second World War, and then 1717 is the midpoint year. And if I started researching those aspects of the timeline, and a lot of things showed up by focusing on that time period. So like 1717 was the year of the founding of the Premier Grand Lodge of England.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
think I think these things infiltrated the Masons, which were Moorish Masons, and stole
Yeah.
their legacy. A lot of other things happening around that same time, but I think the timeline that we're living in terms of our history, started sometime in the mid to late 1700s, when they wrote themselves in, and what was
Right.
going on
Okay.
and even then it's lies, because if they were actually digging out from this cataclysmic event, all the things that they tell us as our history would have been something completely different. So if they were bringing the railroads back, and hiding the civilization, they would have been doing that instead of all these other things that we learn about
Uh,
in school. I think prior to a certain time, it's just fabricated. It's backfilled to give us a new history.
yeah. 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 So we're not going to look into it, are we? Or most people won't look into it, or they just won't question it. There's your textbook. But so the Philadelphia experiment happened in 42, didn't it?
There's two dates. One is that the first one I came across was July 22nd of 1942, and then I came across August 12th of 1943. And
All
I'm
right.
kind of landing on that date because it's during the Lions Gate, which is associated with the figure
With
eight,
the 8.
eight,
Yeah.
eight that that I found. And if you were going to, for example, send a naval vessel back through time, which is I think what happened,
Yeah.
that would have been the time and the place to do it. And so,
Of course, because the energy. Yeah.
I definitely think I would not put my name on it and put that out there if I didn't think there was something to it. I do think there's
Yeah,
something to it.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's because the actual ship apparently disappeared, didn't it? Was it a green fog or something that
Yeah.
surrounded it, and then it disappeared and then came back, or something on that line?
And I think it went back
And,
in time.
and weren't people stuck in the structure
Mm.
of the ship? So it's a definite quantum movement there, isn't it? Because that would suggest nothing is solid, which I believe, that we live in a quantum realm.
And again, they were undoubtedly with so many things, they were misusing pre-existing technology. So I'm sure there's things
Mm,
about portals and, teleportation that was part of the original civilization that we know nothing about because that's been removed from our awareness, so we wouldn't know about it. And there's places on the earth where that's particularly potent. But, if you kind of go with what you think happened and you think that's going to be an immediate block to receiving new information. So if you think you already know everything about what happened, I just encourage people just to kind of keep an open mind and
mm,
even start looking in your own communities differently and seeing what's there and seeing what stories go along with it and asking if that makes sense because that's part of the awakening and you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to go anywhere. I've got a megalithic stone wall outside my window. It's part of a
have
canal.
you?
What used to be a canal. It's called Aspen Creek, but it's definitely a megalithic stone wall. Um, right outside my window. Um, and it's that easy. When I first started waking up to this, my brother's home in Shawnee, Oklahoma, I started seeing megalithic stone blocks in his yard. Um, and it was just like this falling away of that veil. That's why I call my website "Piercing the Veil of Illusion." Because when I
Yeah,
first started seeing it, I thought, well, I pierced that veil, and it's like, can anybody else see what I'm seeing? You know, and definitely not. Hopefully more are now. But I was like, how am I going to show people what I see?
it must have been tough that at the beginning, Michelle, because you
Yeah.
must have felt quite lonely at the beginning.
Yeah. That was about 2 years before I really got underway seriously in my own
Yeah,
research. But
well, you've
I
done
had to be in a
amazing.
time and a place to get to do it and get it started. And the universe conspired to help me do it. And so it's been a pretty amazing ride. It's not life's not easy. It's not always been smooth, but like I said, that's
No.
been the one constant thing in the last 8 years or 7 years when I started doing it 7 years ago.
It's that setting that intention, isn't it? That's how I feel about my channel at the moment. There's times where I feel like I told you off camera, there's times where I feel like it's a struggle, and life's really busy and stressful in different ways in my personal life, and it's I want to put as much energy into this as I possibly can, and then you don't get the time or the energy to do it, and you get frustrated. But it's there, and my intention is pure in that way, that I want to explore. I want to talk to great people like yourself, and bring knowledge to people, and hopefully people will question and have the open mind and that open heart, and become curious enough, like I say, to explore.
Yeah. So it's really all that's required, and just don't blindly accept what you're told, because if you do, you're going to be told that you're going to be gaslit. The people that are
Oh
trying to
yeah,
do the right thing are the ones that get abused in the current system.
yeah,
That's not okay.
100%, 100%. Do you, before we close off, um, even though the grid has been sort of hijacked in this way, do you feel that we can reconnect with that, though, in
Absolutely.
terms of and bring that back?
Great question. Absolutely. It's still there. It's our consciousness. Um, we're all connected to each other. We're all connected to the creator. We're connected to everything in existence, by the
Yeah,
same grid, sacred geometry. And there's a lot of people that are called to do grid work, healing ley lines, sometimes individually and sometimes in groups. There's a active group in Australia headed by Rachel Vaughan called Lay Love Down. They're not gone. They're
Yeah.
not destroyed. They need to be healed. But that's part of why we're here and what we're doing. And I do believe, I'm hearing more and more about that coming out to more people.
Good.
And I'm pretty excited. Uh, I here in Prescott in Arizona, I've been a member of Connecting Consciousness for years, but I've never really gotten involved in it.
Yeah.
And I went to a local meet and greet about 2 weeks ago, today actually, and listened to the people talking and went on to do some errands. And a lady ran out. And she knew who I was. I didn't say I didn't say anything about myself.
Yeah.
But she was familiar with my work, and then that's
Yeah.
got me connected to where it looks like I'm going to be doing more presentations for that group, and they're more awake anyway.
Brilliant.
And then I was talking with the state coordinator yesterday, or within the last couple of days, on topics. And so I'm going to talk about Gatekeepers of History, which is my last upload.
Yeah, it's
The
great that. Yeah.
Smithsonian and
Yeah.
National Geographic and Hiding the Giants and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to add, and then she said, well, what about the Grand Canyon? And I said, well, we'll just add it to that because there's a Smithsonian cover-up associated with that.
Yeah.
Completely separate. This is just within the last day or two. There's a daily digest that gets published
Yeah.
that I get in my email. And the very subject of Tartaria and the Smithsonian, the Grand Canyon, came up completely independently. Had
Oh wow.
nothing to do with that conversation. So I really like the way that you put that in your description. So the most radical act of awakening is truly realizing our timeline, our original timeline. It's like all of a sudden it's right there. But people are
Yeah.
talking about it, especially in a group of people that are already pretty awake. So that, like I said, that happened within a day or two of each other, coming up in a conversation with me and about what I'm going to present, and then somebody else completely independently posted about it.
But more
So
people talk then as well, Michelle. It just spreads. It's raising that consciousness, isn't it? That's why we do what we do. It's why you work so hard, because you're making a difference.
we're all the same consciousness.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we're all the same being having different experience.
I know it messes my head that, Michelle, but it is exactly that. But yeah, it's a wild ride. But
Yeah.
we didn't come here to lose either.
No,
So
and sometimes I wonder, what the hell did I come down here for? This is hard.
oh, I tell you what, I think most people who follow my channel would say, "What the hell am I doing here?"
But then I know why I'm here. So it's like, okay, that's why,
Crack
that
on with it,
we
yeah.
didn't really have a choice, because if people like you or people like me decided not to be here right now, it would not go well. There would not be
No,
enough people to help the collective consciousness reach that critical mass that's needed to shift and have those spontaneous realizations at the same time, because that's how it works. It doesn't take everybody waking up. It takes enough
no,
waking up.
that's right. It's just a percentage. It's the balance. We've got to shift the balance. I do feel it's happening.
An excellent resource for people that might be interested is Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, and he talks about how that works. One person going up in consciousness affects others.
Okay,
It
right.
doesn't happen in isolation. But he talks about that. So like there's fear and shame at the bottom, and joy and bliss at the top. And joy and bliss doesn't mean being happy all the time. It means being neutral. When we want to react, oh, that was a bad experience,
Mm.
and have some kind of emotional reaction. It's just like kind of everything's being chill about everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, I'm not saying at all that's easy or I'm there. I'm just saying that's what it means.
Yeah. We're still human.
Hmm.
We're having a human experience. So the game we're in is tough.
It's not any easier for me than it is for anybody else.
No, I'm sure it isn't, Michelle.
But I've got a lot of resolve. and somebody told me that resolve was a high vibration like love. And I said, oh, good. It's not that I'm not loving. I am. But like so many of us that came in here, that desire to give and be loving to everybody has just gotten kind of pushed back into the box, because you learn that that's not a good idea all the time, especially in this world.
Oh yeah. It's about mastering your own self as well, and knowing who you are, and remembering who you are.
Yeah.
Michelle, I really, really hope you'll come back. I really do.
Sure, I will. You betcha.
And just keep being the hero that you are. You're our hero in our house. We'll have a Michelle Gibson on when we go downstairs in a minute. My missus will have one on, I'll tell you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm just really an ordinary person. Maybe not so ordinary, but an ordinary person. I'm not a known person. I'm just nobody deserves what was planned for us. And I really
No.
feel like I have to do this, and not in a bad way. It's not this, oh my God, it's this, people need to be given different information so they can make different choices about how to respond, and not blame each other or ourselves for this mess we're in, because
That's
it's
right.
truly been manipulated by very dark beings that
Yeah.
have set up a very cruel system, parasitic system, and we're the hosts. And
Yeah, I agree.
they wanted to get rid of us.
Well,
That's what it's
let's
all been
keep
about.
doing what we're doing, Michelle, and let's find the magic, and let's have humanity back where it should be.
That's what it's about, and why we do what we do. And it will get better.
Absolutely. Michelle, the legend Gibson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much love to you, and I really hope we can do it again soon. And
Binks and I thank you.
yeah, well, mine's called Salem. This is Salem.
Yeah,
Very apt name for Salem, isn't it?
yeah. Binks is my spirited one. David's pretty laid back. They're a bonded senior pair that I got about 3 months ago. But they're a delight and make my life interesting.
The animals are wonderful. We've got 3 dogs downstairs. We rescued a Saint Bernard 6 months ago, and she's 12 stone of crazy puppy. And we've got a German Shepherd, and we've got a cross of a Dachshund and a Basset Hound, and I've got a bird in the other room here as well. We love our animals. It's they bring so much love to the house.
Yeah, after I lost Charlie, I was like, I can't stand this. I need more. It's like I didn't have to worry about anything. It was quiet. But it's like the love, the unconditional love, and the joy and the connection, because it's just me was gone. It's like I can't do this. So hopefully we'll get back to a place where love and joy and giving and compassion is the norm. And I do believe that's our natural state, because if we're not being manipulated, we're gathering in communities, we're getting together, we're helping each other. You see that a lot where there's been a so-called natural disaster, where communities have been destroyed and they come in and help each other. That's who we are. And so, that's we just need to be there without all the extra BS.
I agree completely. This is, whoever these controllers are, they underestimate the human spirit. They really do. And I saw that during the crazy period of 2020 when we had the pub that I told you about, because the communities came together. Now they've kind of, at this stage, as things have been plateaued, they've kind of gone there and fragmented and gone off the separate ways. But I know if it came back, if it came onto the doorstep like it did in 2020, people would come back together.
Yep.
And
No,
that's
they
the
don't
human
understand
spirit.
us. They don't understand love. They just understand
Yeah,
destruction,
exactly.
death.
And love is the key to it all.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings to go along with that, Ant, is they thought they could bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. And then a
Yes, I
lot of times
love that.
you'll see a little weed coming up through the sidewalk,
Yes, I
you
love
know.
that. I love that.
So
Yeah, there's
so
no stopping us.
that's what it feels like.
You're right. I love that. That's a great way to end this chat as well, Michelle. Much love to you, and I'll see you
Much
soon.
love to you. Thank you.